All right, welcome to Scalable and Saleable, where we find what great entrepreneurs have done to scale their business into millions and stay right here for the next few minutes to leverage validated methodologies for growth and create a way more scalable and a way more sellable business for yourself. Let's get started. Would you mind just really quickly telling our audience a little bit more about you and what your business is?
Sure. Mark LaPenna, background aviation, data science, 5 startups, 5 exits. Everything ranging from, internet. We were an application service provider for my first business. Sold that in the middle of the dot-com bubble burst. Actually we made a little profit. I was surprised. And then last company sold to ExxonMobil and took a year off, and then started a company. Worked for a company called OAG, Official Airline Guide. About 16 months into that contract, figured that they weren't really doing it right. I could do it better, and I started On-Off Block, which has become Xenesis, which has become one hell of a company.
Wow, that's amazing. 5 for 5. That's incredible. We could, as we're talking, you feel free to reach back into any of the other past businesses experience as far as the advice or info that you're sharing or drawing on. But what would you say when you look back at the different companies, your current company? What are some of the things that you would say you attribute your growth to?
Mistakes.
Yeah, and how do you mean? I get it,
Sure.
but
yeah. Well, I think the true definition of insanity is making the same mistake twice. So you learn from your mistakes and make them often. I think that I think the epitome of scalability and crazy hyperscale is what Musk has done with every company he's put his hands on, and Twitter is going to be no different. I think that when you look at attribution, right? Mistakes cause us to stop and guess and second guess and third guess and really kind of take a look and introspectively decide, was I the cause of the mistake, or was circumstances the cause of the mistake? And at either junction, I think that the mistakes that we make are our fault. I think it's either a lack of preparation, a lack of intelligence. And I don't mean mental intelligence. I mean, market intelligence. I also think it boils down to, have you tested your team? Have you put your team in a situation where they had no choice but to lose? I think it's essential to understand where the break point is in your team, to know what you have. As any coach, any leader of a team, during practice, during muscle memory sessions, they break their team. You have to know what your team's capable of. And if you don't know what your team is capable of, you're setting yourself for a really expensive lesson.
Wow, that's awesome, man. I'm sure you've learned a lot along the way from all these different little mistakes and learning opportunities as you would see them. Based off of all those past mistakes and experiences, if you were coming into a brand new, different business right now, what would be some of the first things that you think you'd look into to start growing that business?
Well, I think understanding your surroundings, understanding, like I said, it goes back to team, understanding your team's capabilities. I think that's essential. I came into the space industry with zero experience other than being an affectionate watcher of space shuttle program, right? And going to space camp, right? That was my extensive experience in the space industry. And what I found is coming into this industry, I think probably the most important thing is realizing that knowledge isn't everything, and market intelligence isn't everything. Sometimes knowing too much is possible, and I think that a lot of times we get caught in like this analysis paralysis where we just kind of look at things and we forget, the reason we're here, at least the reason I'm here, is for the customer. If we design a product for the customer, versus starting, at the product line, right? If we sit down and we talk with a bunch of engineers, we say, hey, listen, let's design a product that fits this mold, right? We're going to miss 80% of the market, right? But if we go and we understand what 80% of the market's looking for, we can design a product for the masses, but more importantly, scalability is built in.
Yeah. Something that they want, not just what you think you'd want to make.
Right. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I think a little bit comes into play when it comes to what I want. I mean, I'm no different than the average everyday Joe going down the line at the grocery store picking out a product, right?
Uh,
In many cases, I think sometimes we're told what we want, right? And I think that the real visionaries in industry are the ones that say, hey, listen, there's a problem, and I really wish I had that product, but no, it doesn't exist.
yeah.
I didn't know I wanted an iPad until it came out. I was like, well, that's a pretty cool product. I think I might need that. Now, it has nothing to do with the fact it was Apple, right? But at the end of the day, I think really what it boils down to is going into a brand new industry. Sometimes it's a huge advantage because, for instance, in the space industry, they've been doing it the same way and they've been getting the same results and nobody's questioned it. And then you get guys like Musk and you got guys like Bezos. And more importantly, you get guys like founders of Planet Labs and the founders of ISI and the planet. And let's talk about totally different industries, Tesla. I mean, I hate to go back to Musk, but you talk about people that come into an industry, they know nothing about the industry, but what they do understand is they understand that if they have a vision and they can convince enough people of that vision and get people to buy into that vision, and the vision has to be solid. It can't be, hey, listen, I want to build a colony on Jupiter. Okay, that's probably a bad idea. But I want to build XYZ product that solves ABC problem. You have to have a visionary mindset, and you have to not be afraid to have people tell you you're fucking crazy.
Yeah, and that's what my wife
Sorry, I
would tell me.
didn't mean to curse. Sorry.
Oh, dude, I don't care at all. That's perfectly fine. I'm going to tell my wife I've decided to spend our life savings on a colony in Jupiter as well.
I think that's an idea you should pursue. I really do. If you feel strongly about it, and I listen, I can be wrong. I mean,
Yes, I don't think
that's a prime example, right? I mean, how
that's
committed
yeah.
are you, right?
Yeah, how to ruin date night is start off with that comment. So what
Depends on the
you've
girl.
yeah, that's true. If you got a ride or die spouse, then they'll say, all right, let's
Absolutely.
do it.
Ride or die, right? Ride or die team, ride or die spouse, ride or die anything, right? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. What do you? I feel lucky that I do have a ride or die spouse. She put up with me coming home from the office at 4 a.m. for a couple of years. I say, I promise one day it'll be worth it.
Right, right.
And then when I sold that company and we, busted open the bottle and hugged and cried, I was like, woo.
Oh yeah.
What do you feel most small business owners do wrong?
Stay small.
What
Stay
about
small.
what about
I think well, let me
yeah,
expand on that. I think that we're getting right now is a prime example. You have the market. Market is shrinking, right? You're looking at a possible hard landing. You're looking at a possible massive recession. You're looking at, everybody's trying to figure out what's going on. FTX failing. Crypto questioning their own existence.
yeah,
I think that, like, I hear. Listen, I think a prime example of the doing it right is actually what Zuckerberg's doing. I'm not a big fan, but I will tell you this: I've looked at the metrics, and I've looked at what he's doing, and I've looked at the acquisitions over the last 18 months, and I've looked at the health of the companies he's acquiring and the patents in the portfolio, and what he's really trying to develop. And I hate to be the one to say this, but he's not only right, but he's going to be massively successful. And if Facebook kicks him out, sorry, Meta kicks him out, great, he'll go out and do it somewhere else. When you're right, there comes a question you have to ask yourself: would you rather be right or would you rather get paid? And most of the time, people say I'd rather get paid. Most people say I'd rather get paid. But I think sometimes you have to take being right to the extreme. You got to be willing to sleep on a fucking park bench.
yeah. That's man. It's funny because you said that. I've already been looking at metaverse CEO peer groups. We have these groups of entrepreneurs and CEOs that meet every month in these little confidential peer-to-peer groups. And I'm already thinking, how do we do that in the metaverse so everybody can see each other? I don't know if they'll look like these crazy avatars or or they'll just look like humans, but
Well,
I'm sure
I mean,
that's coming.
the first dial of connection was an horrible sound, but it was great. It meant you were getting out of your environment. And if you look at connectivity now, I mean, something I'm very near and dear to. Listen, the first avatars, the first people in this experience, in this environment, it's going to be us. It's going to be us that we're going to look like. We're gonna look like robot. We're gonna what's the game that kids are playing with the little block figures? It's gonna look
Uh,
like that, and I think you know
right,
what I'm
right,
talking
right, right.
about. It's going to look
Yeah.
like that.
I got a 13-year-old son, and I've seen it all. Roblox,
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Minecraft, all of it.
Minecraft. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, I think you're gonna find yourself in a situation where it's gonna look really stupid. But I think
Yeah,
it's not about, you know, just the meetings. It's about a quadriplegic jumping in an avatar and actually being able to go and walk the loop. It's about
yeah,
right. It's about like a neural implant that actually completes the connection to somebody that was blind at birth
yeah,
that's never seen the sunset. I mean,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
about a lot of different
Amazing.
things.
Amazing. Yeah. I'm gonna guess you've read your fair share of books. What's been the most important?
I'm dyslexic. I listen, but I can't. I hate
Yeah,
reading.
same.
It takes me
Uh,
forever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I hear you. I'm an audiobook guy too. I can't sit still
Yeah.
long enough to open a book. But what's been an influential book that you've listened to?
Well, I'm not okay. So I hate to say this, but I listen. I'm very glad that Tony Robbins is as successful as he is, and I've listened to some of his stuff, and I don't necessarily subscribe to all of it, but there was Life Force is the most recent book. And it was co-written with him and Peter Diamandis, and he doesn't get into the rah. Matter of fact, he doesn't talk in the book into the last two chapters, so I didn't bother listening to that. But what I was able to learn from that are all these different amazing technologies, and more importantly, the stories behind the technologies that we won't even benefit from. Our grandkids will benefit from it, and that's really the purpose of doing all the things we do. Is for legacy. It's for changing things, right? It's
Yeah,
for changing the status quo. And so that was
yeah,
probably one of my favorite books. Yeah,
yeah.
recently.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. A lot of people don't know about that one yet, so thank you for mentioning that. If you could go back in time to when you first started out and say one thing to younger you, what would you say?
Don't listen to your friends.
Mm,
Don't listen. Don't. Don't travel into school. We're not fish. We're meant to be led. We're also meant to be leaders.
mm,
And I think like my son is 25, and God bless his heart. He is he's struggling with being 25, and I'll tell you this: he is definitely not his friends, and I'm so proud of him because he has taken the long way. He's taken the hard road.
mm.
Getting his degree, all that stuff, but he questions everything, and so probably that's probably the most important thing you can impart on a young person these days is question everything. Ask why 5 times. Why? Okay, but why? But why? Because you're gonna get the real answer in the third, fourth, or fifth why, right? And when you understand people and you understand their motivations, that's the critical. I think that's one of the key components of leadership is understanding people's motivations. Why are you here? I don't mean
Yeah,
here in the company. Why are
yeah,
you? Why
yeah.
do you do what you do?
Yeah, man, that's awesome. What question should I ask you that I haven't?
Um, I think the most important thing for entrepreneurs, especially people that take a big bite, is how do you deal with imposter syndrome? That's probably the most important question. Um, Imposter syndrome is something I never knew anything about. I never even knew what it was, but I had it for a long time. When I was younger, I was dating a girl. I lied about my education, and boy, that haunted me for a while. And I tell you this. That was my first taste of imposter syndrome, and I'll tell you what allowed me to conquer that was realizing that I can't do the things other people can do. I'm terrible at follow up. I'm terrible at paperwork. I'm terrible at the detail. But other people aren't. But what I'm great at, my superpower, I have a couple of them. Number one is recruiting. I love recruiting.
Wow,
It's
that's such an important one. Finding good people is like so hard
yeah.
to do.
I'm amazed by the people that I've lost going down this road. But it's funny, I was talking to a friend of mine this morning, and I'll end here. Um, and this is where my imposter syndrome really just escapes. It just goes. It just disappears. Talking with one of my friends this morning, she's a fundraiser for a big Republican Party, and she said, "How would you look at me?" And I said, "Well," I said, she was dealing with a friendship issue, and I said, "Well, listen, you like to plant, flowers and roses and this and that and the other thing." I said, "How do you really grow a rose bush?" She goes, "Well, you got to prune it." I said, "Exactly." I said, I think the hard part about in the imposter syndrome and growing and, recruiting and all the things that we do is realizing that if you're really going to grow, you're going to outgrow your friend network. You're going to outgrow your business network. You're going to outgrow a lot of things. And the reason that happens is because if you're not pruning yourself, you're not pruning your relationships, you're going to get stuck and you're going to become a weed, And I guess maybe if you live in Colorado, that's a cool thing. But, outside of the hash pipe, I think that, being a weed is horrible, And so I think as you gotta ask yourself a real question. Do you want to grow, and are you willing to grow at the expense of some of your relationships? Because not everybody will want to grow with you. And we really are a product of our environment, a product of our surroundings, in most cases. And the people that really achieve from the hood to the boardroom, I think that you really find yourself when you start to walk away from relationships that are either A, a poor influence, or B, just not positive enough. That's it.
Yeah, man. Well said. Wow. Any parting words of advice for entrepreneurs in the trenches, fighting like hell for their dreams?
Have a therapist. Have a therapist. Yeah, I'm serious. Don't confide in your team. Don't listen. I made the mistake a long time ago, confiding in my team. And, listen, as a CEO, we're not anybody else in the company. As a CEO, it's not about being liked. It's about leading. It's about leading. And if people like you, that's great. But you just got to remember, people liking you is great, and you liking people is awesome. But at some point, getting back to pruning, you're going to have to fire people. And if you don't, you're going to get fired. So you have to realize that, growing a company is also about the churn of the team, and if you're really good at recruiting, you could probably retain 70% of the people you retain, right? But really, ultimately, as the old 80-20 rule goes, you need about 20% of those people to really, really run an operation. And Twitter's experiencing that right now. They got, 750 people running the company, whereas they got rid of all these other people. I'm joking, but, there's other people are realizing, funny meme, I'll stop here. This is probably the best advice. Don't be the 75,000th hire, because you're totally expendable.
You're right. And it's funny because those are the same people that think it's a way more safer path than being an entrepreneur, which ironically, it's learning. I remember my last company, the one I sold most recently, I remember these people taking a safer job working for me, and me thinking, we're going through the Great Recession and everything. I'm just like fighting out there, you're basically, hanging on me.
If you had any idea, and that's the thing, you can't don't confide in your team. I mean, it's okay, I guess, at some level to confide in your co-founders, but at some point, you have to stop doing that too. And you have to realize that, peer groups, like you're talking about, I guess kind of goes to what you're saying. Peer groups, therapy, counselors, journaling. I go through one of these every 2 weeks, 100 pages, and this is my journal, and it's also my engineering book. See, and I have a stack of these. I have about almost 1,000 of these probably now.
Yeah, same.
And it's my life. It's my life since I was 18 years old. I've been doing it.
Amazing. Yeah. It's funny when you said therapy, because when we do our once a month, we have our CEO peer groups, and we talk about hiring and operations and marketing and finance and sales and all this stuff. The main thing I think people say that they like the most is just the therapy aspect of being with other people that get it and go through the same roller coaster ride of insanity as them, and I think that's like maybe the biggest value in it. But man, that was
loneliest. Next to being an astronaut on the moon, it's the loneliest job in the world.
Yes, 100% it is. Man, thank you so much.
Funny thing, even talking to other CEOs, it's like, sometimes I got a friend of mine here. I'll give a shout out real quick. I got a good friend of mine, Sheetal Jaley, founder of TravelScale, massively successful company. Went through a bankruptcy a long time ago, turned it around, really just got his arms around the business and is killing it. And he and I will hang out sometimes. And he's one of my investors, and we'll hang out sometimes. And they'll just look at me like, dude, rub some dirt on it, move on, And sometimes you do. You just got to rub some dirt on it and just move on.
You know what?
You can't.
I think that might be one of the biggest takeaways of this is entrepreneurs watching this is every now and then just rub some freaking dirt on it and move on. Let's go.
Yeah, definitely. So listen, appreciate it, man.